Welcome to my Learn English YouTube channel. Before we begin today's session, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more valuable content like this.
Welcome in, everyone, to a deep dive into finding your voice. I think you're going to like this one. We're going to be breaking down this really cool interview with Nimi Mehta. She's this former TV and radio presenter, and now, get this, she coaches people on communication skills.
Wow.
Yeah, and she's got this whole background. I mean, she's been on TV, she's been on radio, and now she's helping people find their voice.
That's amazing.
It is. So the interview that we're going to be breaking down is from the Balance Theory podcast. Have you ever listened to that one?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, it's pretty good, actually. I started listening to it recently, and I think that you might like it. Anyway, in this interview with Nimi, there were just so many takeaways that really stuck with me, and I can't wait to dive into it with you today.
Yeah, me too.
So, one of the things that really struck me was, she got what seemed like her dream job at MTV when she was only 21.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 21. But as you can imagine, it wasn't exactly what she expected.
I can imagine at 21,
Yeah, exactly. So we'll definitely dive into that. And then she's got this really interesting idea called the voice layer theory.
Okay.
It's basically this idea that our true, authentic voice gets kind of buried, under all these layers of external influences over time.
Sure.
Our parents, our teachers, the media, social media, all that stuff. And then she has this amazing way of dealing with fear that I think is just so powerful. Instead of avoiding it, she actually asks herself this question: which fear do I choose?
That's interesting.
I know, right? So rather than just letting fear control her decisions, she actively chooses which fear she's going to act on.
That's a really cool way to look at it.
It is. And that's what I love about Nimi's whole approach. It's all about taking action, even when you're afraid. So our mission today is to really understand what finding your voice actually means and give you some practical strategies to start doing it.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with Nimi's early career journey. That MTV experience, while it wasn't what she imagined, it ended up being this really crucial turning point for her.
How so?
Well, it wasn't the glamorous start that she might have pictured.
Yeah.
No red carpets, no backstage passes.
Ah.
Yeah, but she learned a really valuable lesson from it.
Okay.
That goals are not endpoints. They're more like markers on this constantly evolving journey.
No, true.
Right. And that dream job actually taught her more about what she didn't want, which is just as important as knowing what you do want.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
Totally. Think about the aspirations you had years ago. Have they shifted for you at all?
Oh my gosh, all the time. I mean, I used to think I wanted to be a novelist.
Really?
Yeah, but it turns out I actually much prefer the immediacy of podcasting, connecting with our listeners, like right now. It's just, I don't know, it's more my style.
Makes sense. It's about finding what truly lights you up. And Nimi really emphasizes enjoying the process, not just fixating on some distant goal. She talks about this idea of the power of proximity.
Oh yeah, I remember that part.
So she took all these different media jobs just to stay close to the industry she loved, even if they weren't her dream job at that moment.
Like when she literally hand-delivered her CV to that TV producer.
Wait, really? She did that?
Yeah. He wasn't responding to her emails, so she just showed up at his office.
Wow, that's dedication.
I know! Talk about hustle. That's a level of determination I really admire.
It's inspiring, isn't it? So let's bring this proximity idea to your world, to our listeners' world. Think about your own goals for a second.
Okay.
Are you surrounding yourself with the right people and experiences right now? Who do you need to connect with? What skills could you be developing, even if they seem kind of indirect right now?
Yeah. That's making me think about some networking events I've been putting off.
Interesting.
I think it's time for me to, step out of my comfort zone a little bit.
I think you should. I mean, often those small steps lead to big breakthroughs. And speaking of breakthroughs, Nimi's journey to Channel 4 Dubai is like a perfect example of how visualization can really make a difference.
Oh, absolutely.
You remember how she spent years visualizing herself on their presenter lineup?
Yeah, almost like she was manifesting it.
Exactly. And she did. But it's not just wishful thinking,
Yeah.
Studies actually show that visualization primes our brains for action.
Really?
It's like creating a mental roadmap that helps us recognize opportunities, It helps us make choices that actually align with our goals.
So if we're not intentional about what we visualize, our minds just wander to doubts and anxieties.
Exactly. So instead, we can choose to focus on what we actually want to create. It's a practice, like anything else.
That's a good point.
So what are you actively visualizing right now? And what small steps can you take today to bring those visions a little closer?
Ooh, that's good. I'm feeling inspired to dust off my vision board.
I like it.
Okay, now, from Channel 4, Nimi makes another big move. She leaves this secure radio job to become an entrepreneur.
Wow, that's brave.
It is. And that's where her perspective on fear gets really interesting. Instead of avoiding it, she asks herself, which fear do I choose?
Which fear do I choose?
Yeah, and it's such a powerful reframe because it acknowledges that fear will always be there, but we actually get to decide which fear to act on.
That's so true.
It is. So in her case, she chose the fear of staying stuck over the fear of the unknown.
I see.
It reminds me of that quote, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." So I'm curious, what fears are holding you back right now?
Ooh, good question. I think.
Or, our listeners too.
Yeah. Could be the fear of failure, or maybe even the fear of truly owning your potential.
That's a good one. Sometimes that is the scarier one,
Yeah. Like, what if I actually succeed?
Exactly. And then, Nimi also has this 5-second rule that she uses, which helps her act on instinct before overthinking takes over.
A 5-second rule. Okay. Tell me more.
It's brilliant. Like, she'll have this gut feeling about something, and she'll give herself 5 seconds to act on it before her mind can start, rationalizing and analyzing everything to death.
Oh, I totally get that. My mind loves to overanalyze.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Do you have any strategies for, tuning into that gut feeling more?
Yeah. For me, it's about creating space for quiet reflection.
Okay.
Whether that's a walk in nature, meditation, or just disconnecting from the digital world for a while, that really helps those intuitive whispers become a little louder.
Yeah, it's like decluttering your mind to make room for clarity. And this is where Nimi's voice layer theory comes in, which I'm really excited to unpack. It's about how our authentic voice gets kind of muted, right? By all these layers of outside influence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about earlier, parents, teachers, media, social media, they all contribute to this, should storm of how we're supposed to think and act.
Yeah, it's like we're constantly bombarded with these messages about who we should be, often without even realizing it.
It's true. And that's why, becoming aware of these influences is so crucial.
Yeah, to break free from them.
Yeah. So ask yourself, who and what is actually shaping your beliefs and your choices right now? Are they helping you express your true self, or are they holding you back?
That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg.
It is a lot to unpack. And Nimi, she offers this powerful 2-step process for uncovering that authentic voice. The first step is, well, she calls it isolation.
Isolation. Sounds a little intense.
Yeah, it does. But, it doesn't have to be like some crazy social media detox retreat or anything.
Okay, good.
It can be as simple as, spending some time alone, maybe
Yeah.
journaling, just disconnecting from the noise of the world for a little bit.
I like that.
Yeah, it's all about questioning everything you think you know.
Interesting.
Stripping away those layers of external influence to see what's actually left underneath.
So it's about rediscovering who you are, at your core.
Exactly. Without all the shoulds and the expectations.
Yeah. Okay, so what about the second step?
The second step is to really evaluate, the 5 closest people in your life.
Oh, okay.
Think about whether they're enhancing your voice, making you feel supported and empowered, or are they maybe dimming it a little bit, causing you to doubt yourself.
Ooh, that's a great exercise. It makes you think because sometimes, even people with the best intentions can unintentionally hold us back.
Absolutely. And it's not about blaming anyone,
Yeah.
right? It's more about just becoming aware of how our relationships are impacting our sense of self.
Yeah.
We have the power to choose who we surround ourselves with and what voices we actually allow to influence us.
That's so true.
And it's an ongoing process. It's not like a one-time fix.
Right, because relationships evolve. We evolve.
Exactly.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually start using this authentic voice, especially in situations where it feels really difficult?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah, it is.
And one area where this comes up a lot is, the whole difference between being nice and being assertive.
Oh, I struggle with that all the time.
Really?
Yeah, wanting to speak up, but then worrying about coming across as aggressive or not nice.
I get it. It's a common struggle.
Mm.
And Nimi actually shared this story about, being told she needed to be a bit of a bitch to get ahead in the media industry.
Oh, gosh.
It's sad, but it reflects a double standard that a lot of women face.
Totally. Assertiveness in men is seen as confident and strong, but for women, it's often labeled negatively.
It's true. It's like we're supposed to be agreeable and accommodating all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. But Nimi, she chose a different path. She understood that being assertive doesn't have to mean being unkind.
Mm.
It's about honoring your own needs and boundaries while still being respectful of others.
So how do we find that balance? How do we speak up without, like, sacrificing our values?
Well, Nimi talks about treating your words like gold. So, responding thoughtfully rather than just reacting impulsively. It's about pausing, taking a breath, and choosing your words carefully.
That's good advice. I'm definitely more of a reactor, especially when I feel, like, triggered or misunderstood. Any tips for getting better at that pause?
It takes practice. But one thing that helps me is to mentally reframe the situation.
Okay.
So instead of seeing it as a threat, I try to see it as an opportunity to, clarify my needs and find a solution that works for everyone involved.
That's a helpful shift in perspective.
Yeah, it can make a big difference.
So we don't have to choose between being a doormat and being, a bitch.
Right, exactly. There's a whole spectrum of assertive communication styles in between.
I like that.
And ultimately, Nimi emphasizes leaving people feeling good after interacting with her. It's about combining assertiveness with compassion.
Which ties back to her voice layer theory, right? Once you've stripped away those external layers, you're left with your core values, and those values should guide your communication.
Precisely. And those values might look different for everyone.
Yeah.
For some people, it might be about directness and honesty. For others, it might be about empathy and diplomacy. The key is to find an approach that feels authentic to you.
Makes sense. So we've covered a lot about finding your voice, from dealing with fear to navigating all those tricky social situations. But what about, like, the inner critic?
Yes.
That voice inside our heads that's always telling us we're not good enough.
The dreaded inner critic. We all have one to some extent.
Yeah.
And it can be especially loud when we're trying to, step into our authentic selves and use our voice in new ways.
Totally. It's like as soon as we try to break out of our comfort zone, that voice starts whispering, "Who do you think you are?"
Exactly. It's like it wants to keep us small and safe.
Yeah. So how do we manage that inner critic?
Well, the first step is to simply become aware of it.
Okay.
Just notice when those negative thoughts pop up.
So it's about paying attention to our self-talk and becoming more conscious of those limiting beliefs.
Right. And then, instead of trying to silence that inner critic, which rarely works, we can start to challenge it.
Oh, okay.
Ask yourself, is this thought really true? Is it helpful?
I love that approach. It's about turning that negative self-talk into a more constructive dialogue.
Exactly. And sometimes it helps to reframe those critical thoughts. For example, instead of thinking, I'm not good enough, you might ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? Or how can I grow from this challenge?
That's a much more empowering way to look at it. It's about shifting from a mindset of self-criticism to a mindset of curiosity and growth.
Precisely. And remember, your inner critic is just a part of you, not the whole you. You have the power to choose which voice you listen to.
Which brings us back to Nimi's question, which fear do I choose? It's not just about external choices, right? It's about the internal choices we make every day.
I love that connection.
Like which thoughts we feed, which voice we amplify.
Exactly. And it reminds us that finding our voice is an ongoing journey, not a destination. There will be moments of doubt and setbacks and challenges along the way.
But the most important thing is to keep showing up, keep practicing, keep trusting that our voice matters.
Absolutely. And to celebrate the small wins along the way. Each time you speak up, each time you express yourself authentically, you're strengthening that voice and making it louder.
That's a great reminder. It's not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that our voice has the power to not only change our own lives, but to impact the world around us.
So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, let's shift our focus to the practical side of things. What are some tangible tools and techniques we can use to nurture our authentic voice and communicate more effectively?
Yeah, absolutely. And, all this talk about our voice impacting the world reminds me of something Nimi said about, how the quietest person in the room isn't necessarily the least confident. It really got me thinking about all the different ways that confidence can actually show up.
Yeah, that's such a good point. We often equate confidence with being like loud or outspoken,
Yeah.
but there's this real power in like what we might call soft confidence,
Right.
like a quiet self-assurance that doesn't need to shout to be heard.
Exactly.
So I'm picturing like someone who speaks with intention, who listens deeply, and who doesn't back down from their values.
Yes,
They might not be the life of the party, but they have this presence that commands respect.
precisely. It's a confidence that comes from self-awareness,
Yeah.
like from knowing your strengths and weaknesses and just being comfortable in your own skin.
Totally.
It's about trusting your intuition and letting your actions speak louder than words.
And I imagine vulnerability plays a big role in this type of confidence too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it takes courage to show up authentically, with all your imperfections and everything.
It does. And, Nimi's own journey is a testament to that. She's been so open about her challenges and setbacks, which actually makes her message even more relatable and inspiring.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we don't have to have it all figured out to have a voice worth sharing.
So true. It's like that saying, vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. But how do we actually practice being more vulnerable in our everyday lives? It feels so risky to put ourselves out there like that.
It can be, but, it doesn't have to be some big, grand, sweeping gesture.
Okay.
Start small, like share a personal story with a trusted friend.
Yeah.
Admit when you're feeling uncertain or struggling. The more we practice vulnerability, the easier it becomes.
It's about building trust, I guess, both with ourselves and with others. And it's about recognizing that vulnerability is not weakness. It's actually a sign of strength.
Exactly. It takes strength to be honest about our feelings, to admit when we need help, and to let go of that need to be perfect.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into finding our voice, what are some key takeaways our listeners can start applying today? What actions can they take, even if it's just one small step?
Well, first, remember that finding your voice is a journey, not a destination. It's about, continually peeling back those layers of external influence and rediscovering who you are at your core.
And it's about choosing the fear that aligns with your values, even if it means stepping outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to experiment and make mistakes. That's how we learn and grow.
Totally.
And remember Nami's 5-second rule. When you feel that gut instinct, act on it before your mind can talk you out of it.
Trust your intuition. It's a powerful guide. And remember that being assertive doesn't have to mean being unkind. It's about communicating your needs and boundaries, but, still being respectful.
Right. Treat your words like gold. Respond thoughtfully rather than just reacting impulsively. And always, strive to leave people feeling good after interacting with you.
And finally, remember that confidence comes in many forms. Embrace your unique style, whether it's soft-spoken or bold and boisterous.
What matters most is that you're showing up authentically and using your voice to make a positive impact on the world.
I love that. It's been such an insightful conversation. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for navigating the world with more confidence and authenticity.
And remember, you already have everything you need within you. Trust yourself, embrace your journey, and never be afraid to let your true self shine.
That's a beautiful note to end on. Keep diving deep, everyone. Until next time.